My name is Ari Uusikartano. I come from company Igloos. Mr. Timo Saukko, our Chief Executive Officer, wasn't able to join us, but perhaps next time. So I'm going to go through some details with heated glass with you. And should you have questions during my presentation, please feel free to interrupt whenever convenient. So the content of this presentation is actually not heated glass, but thermal conditions of of room, of building, etc. I will deal shortly why it is so important, which are the challenges, which effects do IGU units have, and which solution does heated glass provide with. And then in the very late part of the presentation, we are dealing with some case studies to show you that it really works. So why thermal conditions are so important? Very many studies have shown that thermal and acoustic conditions are the most common source of discomfort in the building. This is very true, especially in the Northern Hemisphere, but believe me, that is also the fact in warm areas of the globe. 89% of the buildings in Canada, USA, and Finland are having unsatisfactory thermal conditions. This study, or the last study we found out, was from year 2006. But the new studies show that this has been continuing ever since. So we are not actually building enclosures, houses, offices, hospitals that will provide and do provide nice thermal condition to the people. And that's quite odd, to be honest. Thermal comfort increases productivity. That is also very known and very clearly shown in studies all over the world. We know that a change of 2 degrees in indoor temperature boosts human performance by 5%, and that's quite a lot. We also know that 3.4% increase in productivity is enough to compensate all the extra costs. Then what challenges do we have in thermal conditions? Obviously, Cold War effect is the biggest one. We know that whenever there's especially facade, we know that the closer you are to the facade, the stronger the Cold War effect is. And we know that the higher the wall is, the more stronger the influence. It causes convection, which causes a lot of inconvenience to the people. And it affects directly to indoor comfort. So we should really focus on that factor to make better buildings to our people. Then, of course, condensation is one issue. It doesn't only block the visibility, but it also ruins the construction. Ice formation, that is, let's say, a visible harm, but that can also cause serious threat to the people who are walking, for example, in the street and are jeopardized by falling ice. Then, of course, snow buildup. We know, especially in Northern Hemisphere, that if we have a overhead glazing and if there's 1 to 2 centimeters of snow on top, the visibility is blocked. It looks like very grayish, and I'm pretty sure that that's not the very purpose of that overhead glazing. And of course, it's always a safety issue. Cold radiation. We know that temperature difference between the inner surface of the glass and room will cause asymmetries, which then again have some effects. Especially they reduce comfort, and comfort is a bit tricky thing to measure. But we know that even a change of 1 degree centigrade has quite a big effect. Here are some studies on convection. This shows a very extreme condition. Outside temperature is -30. Inside temperature is +21, and the surface temperature of the glass is +14. As I said, this is very extreme. But this temperature difference, +14 to +22, 7 degrees, already causes airflow speed, which is 0.2 to 0.9 meters per second. That doesn't really sound so high, but we know that if the facade is high enough, we have seen actually some films on the subject. The cold wall starts to run down, fall down, and the lower it gets, the faster it gets. And when it hits the floor, the speed is actually increased, and the cold wall runs towards the people. And the effect can be measured even 15 to 20 meters from the facade. And here's some maths, which I'm not strong with, but very shortly, temperature difference affects, and of course, the height of the facade. And if you take a look around on the buildings today, the facades are normally quite high. So the risk is even bigger than it used to be, for example, 20 years ago. This is an example where the glass height is 6 meters. And if the temperature difference between the inner surface of the glass and indoor is either 4 kelvins, 4 degrees centigrade, up to 8 degrees, you can see that airflow speed is something like roughly 0.5 to 0.7. This is extreme condition, but it really doesn't take into account the height of the facade. And this should illustrate the situation a bit more. Please ignore the impression of the face. The lady shouldn't perhaps look that angry, but the fact is that it affects. We have lots of customers who are running, for example, restaurants in Central Europe. And the problem with these people is that they can't actually furnish the restaurant tables by the window because it's so chilly. So they can actually measure the effect on the cold wall effect by discounting so and so many tables, meaning so and so many customers each year, meaning a lack of turnover of this much. Then the condensation. The picture on the right shows the situation before heated glass was installed. And this project is located in Maastricht, in Holland, which we do not consider a very rough climate. And still you can see that the condensed water is all over the facade. It doesn't look nice. It ruins the construction in the course of time. And I'm pretty sure that that is not something that the customer really purchased. So he decided to change the glasses from standard glass to heated glass, and it is shown in the picture to the left. So there's a huge difference in Holland. Then ice formation and snow buildup. Of course, this is an issue in Northern Hemisphere. as said, even 1 or 2 centimeters of snow on top of the glazing already blocks the visibility. And it looks quite grayish, really. It doesn't look so nice. And the fact is that, for example, in Finland, we have built lots of hospitals with overhead glazing. We know in Finland, I'm pretty sure that is well known all over the world, that the more light patients are getting, the shorter the recovery time. And snow really blocks that effect quite drastically. Freezing rain can be even a problem. We have heard some issues in North America, as well as in Scandinavia and Russia. Of course, snow and ice adds load on the roof. Okay, normally it's calculated within, but it means that the construction needs to be stronger, more robust. We have also delivered lots of classes to walk-on glass constructions, compositions. And everybody can imagine what happens if there is even 1 millimeter of ice on anti-slip coating on walk-on glass. It doesn't really work as planned. Then effect of IGU units and structures on thermal conditions. This is very well known, of course, that I would say a standard triple glaze unit nowadays has U value of 0.6. That is more or less a standard in northern countries nowadays. Whereas double glaze unit has 1.0, 1.1. And on the left you see the outdoor temperature starting from minus 10 to minus 13. Once again, minus 13 is very extreme condition. Minus 10 would be perhaps the most feasible outside temperature in your countries. And you can see the corresponding inside temperature on the glass surface to the right. So if we have triple glaze unit with U value of 0.6 and we have minus 10 degrees centigrade outside the building, the temperature on the glass surface is roughly 18 degrees. And supposedly the indoor temperature would be plus 21 to plus 22, meaning that there's a temperature difference roughly from 3 to 5 degrees perhaps. Then again, the whole U value of the facade is less than that of IGU unit. We know that there are cold areas on the edge of the glazing. We know that the total U value will be less. And all this is not included in European standard, which of course gives a very standardized calculation situation. Right, then heated glass, what it really does. How many of you have even heard about heated glass before? Please raise your hand. Oh, so many. I'm actually surprised. Good to hear. So very shortly, normally our heated glass is a part of insulating glass unit. It can be double glaze unit or triple glaze unit. We can combine all the, let's say, features required, such as sun blocking, anti-reflectance, etc., etc. So basically, it's a standard insulating glass unit with the highest properties you can get with your money. But in addition to, we can heat up the inner surface of the glass just to prevent the Cold War effect. Just to be sure that if you don't lose your temperature, if you don't radiate your temperature, your warmth, your energy to the glass, you feel much, much more comfortable in the room. In Northern Hemisphere, we can also melt ice and snow on the rooftops. And that's something that is actually spreading all over the world, in Northern Hemisphere especially. The benefits of heated glass is, of course, energy efficiency. I will come back to this a bit later. It will optimize the thermal comfort inside the room and inside the building. You can see through it, and that's, of course, very important. It's safe, and it gives longer lifetime to the whole construction, really. It reacts very fast. So when you turn on the knob or put the glasses on, regardless of their outer surface, outer temperature, I would say that within 10 to 20 minutes, the temperature of the glass is on the set you just wanted to have it, very roughly. It saves space. I will show how much actually normally in normal buildings nowadays, and in offices it boosts really the efficiency, and as I mentioned, in hospitals the recovery time is shorter. One might ask whether it actually loses energy. Does it really make sense to heat up the coldest part of the facade? It really does. This quote is to Finnish research conducted by Finnish Research Technical Center. And it shows that with a triple glaze unit, standard triple glaze unit with U value roughly 0.6, 0.7, 100% of the energy was converted to heating. And even more important, more than 90% of the energy was directed inside, meaning that you may lose perhaps 9% of the energy, not more than that. Then indoor comfort, I mentioned already a few times. It stops convection and cold radiation. And we know from experience that very, very low power density is enough for this. Here we say that 20, 30 watts per square meter is already enough. In Northern Hemisphere, in, for example, Finnish Lapland, perhaps 50 to 100 watts per square meter is enough, but that's all. Imagine that you have old-fashioned pulp. They are normally from 40, perhaps to 60 watts altogether. So it's not really too much. And when we heat up the coldest surface of the room, we know that this is also based on the study conducted by Finnish Technical Research. It says that if you reduce or if you heat up the coldest surface in the room, you can actually lower the room temperature by 1 to 2 degrees. And at Finnish electricity prices, that means roughly savings of 10 to 15% annually. And in Finland, actually, electricity is very, very cheap indeed. Then condensation and blocked view. The picture on the left shows a typical situation where we have humid conditions. We have actually lots of customers in UK. UK is not considered very, very demanding environment. On the other hand, we know that it's sometimes bloody cold there, bloody windy, and their insulation level is not that of ours here in Finland. So there's very often condensed water on the inner surface of the facade. Then, for example, in Far East, we have one project going on where we hopefully supply quite a lot of heated glass on to heat up the outer surface of the facade. The problem is that indoor temperature is roughly plus 22 in that building, whereas the outer temperature can be something like plus 26 to plus 38 we were given. So the problem is actually vice versa compared to situation in Northern Europe. And the whole facade nowadays is blocked with water. I already very shortly mentioned that it saves space. It really does. Here's a, let's say, living project, a living building in the city center of Helsinki. This is Helsinki Music Center, and they have fun coils all along the facade. This is very typical situation. There's a fun coil all over the facade, and it is extended to 100 meters or so. The depth of the fun coil is 1 meter, which is shown here. So that space is lost. And we actually know, because of the studies conducted, that fun coils normally affect only to the height of perhaps 2, 3, 4 meters in maximum. And this facade is much, much higher. Then, if we replaced the glazing with heated glass, we would have some 1,000 square meters of heated glass, which gives us a cost comparison. And very shortly, in a nutshell, the investor would have saved roughly 1 million euros by choosing heated glass compared to present technology they have. And this calculation has been conducted also for a couple of other public buildings in Finland. And the result is the very same. So heated glass really provides a very huge cost savings for the investor. I said that fun coils normally affect only to the height of perhaps 3 meters, 4 meters in max. And what really happens is that the fine coil blows hot air. Sorry? Okay. Fun coil blows hot air, whereas cold air falls down. And these two air blows doesn't really mix up. Let's skip this video. It would have shown it in more details, but we have even more important things to check. I mentioned that we have case studies. This is one of them. From customer's point of view, this was the only technical solution. So we heat up actually the indoor temperature, inner surface of the glass, and we melt the snow. But from customer's point of view, the most important thing was that payback time of this investment was 7 months. Imagine that, 7 months. So he started with 15 igloos, and he now has more than 50. And I would consider that a proof of well-functioning building. It melts ice and snow. This is still one of the biggest projects we have ever supplied. That is located 2 blocks away from Red Square in Moscow. We have some 12,500 square meters of heated glass. Then proven energy efficiency. In Northern Hemisphere, we put lots of effort and money in removing snow from the overhead glazing. This case shows that it was measured during 3 consecutive years that the average cost per year per square meter was €1, whereas if you do it manually, it's €10 per square meter annually. Then safety, comfort, and convenience. This project is Mercury City Tower in Moscow, Russia. And we have supplied heated glass to 3 different positions. And they have multiple functions. They melt snow and ice to prevent ice falling down on the people. And they bring indoor comfort to the people as well. Additionally, we can apply different new technologies to heated glass. For example, electrochromic glass, which is available, different kind of other options. So the baseline is that whatever the new technology, we can adapt that into heated glass as well. So very shortly, this is what heated glass can bring. Right, thanks.
Hi there, did you like what you just saw? If you did, why don't you like the video, drop us a comment below, and share the video as well, since GPD is all about sharing. And to receive more videos in future, subscribe to this channel and don't forget to click the bell icon. Ciao!